This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's access media station, Plains FM, and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
It's time for Emergence News on Plains FM 96.9, citizen-made radio.
Welcome to Emergence News. Why Emergence? Because we study and examine the gradual emergence of the next world teacher, Maitreya. And on today's program, and I'm really looking forward to this program, on today's program we explore further the effect that deep materialism has landed us in this critical economic and political conditions of today. We are not understating the situation. Everywhere you look, there is unrest. Everywhere you look, there is the threat of war. Everywhere you turn, there is dividing opinions on virtually every issue that you can think of. The world is divided politically, economically, religiously, and socially into two main groups. These groups are in confrontation throughout the world, throughout the planet. One group forms the conservative and reactionary forces in all fields globally. The other group, the progressive forces, are those who are able to respond to the new incoming cosmic energies, who sense the need for something new. So on today's program, we're going to talk about these two rays, and with me is Peter. And Peter, you're going to be looking at this clash of energies between the sixth and seventh rays. Yes,
mainly the seventh ray, but definitely the influence of the sixth ray as we have it now.
And also in the studio with me is John. We're going to hear from Peter about the clash of these two rays, the sixth and seventh rays, John, but you're going to be looking at, well, what's the result?
Well,
why have we got this clash of energies, and what's the result of that?
Yes. Listen, I'm going to be talking about the sword of cleavage, which is something we've bounced around with before, and it's incredibly relevant right now that we talk to our listeners about what's happening energetically on the planet.
And the result is?
The result is cleavage.
Cleavage.
It is the sword of cleavage, and the cleavage is there for a reason, which we'll discuss later on.
All right, so we look forward to this. So in a moment, Peter's going to have a look at the sixth ray, which is on its way out, but its qualities, unfortunately, John, saturate and colour all our structures and all our institutions.
Listen, Nigel, there's nothing wrong with being sixth ray, okay? That's where I'm at.
Okay, we'll look forward
and you're not squeezing me out.
Well, we'll look forward to Peter offering some clarification on that.
Dissecting us, yes.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be back in just a moment. So welcome back to Emergence News, and we're looking at an interesting topic today. Deep materialism has landed us in the critical conditions of today, politically and economically, and we're looking at this clash of energies, the two potencies. Are they of equal strength? Well, Peter might argue that they are. We've got the sixth ray and the seventh ray, and one fosters individualism and separatism. And what about the seventh ray, Peter?
Yes, well, I mean, the seventh ray is the ray of ritual and magic, and we've certainly, if we think about the computer systems that we have today, they're certainly magic insofar as if we go back 50 years, we couldn't actually imagine that we could do the things we can do on the computer. So, you know, we have this magic in a technological sort of sense, but of course the sixth ray has been is a ray of idealism, and but it's really structured and set on the astral level, on the astral plane. And so it's only when we get into the seventh ray, it actually is trying to bring those ideals of the Piscean era, the sixth ray energy, down to
Matter.
definite, yes, material, actually something that on the material plane. So in other words, as far as the sixth ray got with regard to the ideals and the devotion and all this sort of things, the seventh ray will manifest it. Will bring it into direct physical manifestation.
So that's really, on one level, that's really exciting news, isn't it?
Yes, well, it's making use, obviously, and let's face it, these rays don't come in by accident. They're all planned by the various hierarchies and whatnot. In fact, the seven rays pour throughout our solar system, and indeed through the whole galaxy. Our solar system actually is a second ray system, so all the other rays are really secondary rays of ray 2. So we have 4 rays in incarnation at any one time on our planet: the second ray, third, fifth, and the seventh at the moment. And as we were talking about, the ray 6 is moving out, and it has been moving out since 1625. So it's a long process of where they're both in play, if you like.
Peter,
So,
can I just jump in there? You talked about magic and computers, and I think that's a really interesting analogy, very useful analogy. So when we look at the seventh ray, we think of ritual, but do we also think of process, protocol? Do we think of structure?
Yes, we do. I mean, the virtues of the ray 7 are strength and perseverance and courage, courtesy, meticulousness, self-reliance, sort of creativity, thoughtfulness, and organisation. Organisation is the big one. And of course, the computing system has the ability to do this.
Yes,
And I mean, this is something that will be so useful with regard to Maitreya's influence, with regard to sharing the world's resources, food for everyone, because it will need a high level of organisation to achieve that, won't it?
Yeah.
And
organisation and order.
Yes, that's
systems.
Right. Yes, and of course, I mean, there's plenty of vices with each ray has vices and virtues, and the vices of ray 7 are bigotry, pride, poor judgment, overstressing of routine, and tendencies towards dictatorship and imposed control. Well, we can see all that sort of thing happening.
And I'd like to tell our viewers that I have no seventh ray in me whatsoever. That is very interesting, Peter, because we are seeing those qualities, those not necessarily the positive qualities, but certainly those qualities tied in with this division that we're seeing globally, that polarisation.
That's right. Yes, that's right. I mean, ray 6, of course, has got its vices, as we well know.
Be careful there, Peter. Just be really careful.
Yeah. I've got 4 ray 6s in my makeup too. So I understand the problem, but I've got 2 ray 7s, so I'm sort of a bit of a mixture there.
Why don't you tell us what ray 6 is?
Well, ray 6 is devotion, and all the religions have come in through this ray 6. You might say it's engendered all the various religions that we've got.
I remember a very famous Beatle once said, "All religions are branches of one big tree. It doesn't matter what you call them, just so long as you call."
Yes, well, that's exactly what Blavatsky said, and she proved it quite successfully in my mind.
Yeah.
She went back to the beginning points of each religion.
So, Peter, with ray 6, what are we looking for?
Well, it's going to be sort of dying out, if you like, because as ray 7 manifests down on the physical sort of thing, the devotion and all these amazing sort of ideas from the ray 6, the fantastic painting, trying to express the beauty of God. Some of these amazing painters of the like Michelangelo and Leonardo and these.
Rembrandt.
They were just absolutely incredible, and they combined. Well, mainly they were combining Ray 4 and Ray 7. In fact, Ray 6 didn't actually play, but they had to actually go along with the people in charge at the time, often the popes or higher religious people.
Ray 6, we're looking for devotion, we're looking for maybe fanaticism, we're looking for individualization, so it's the ray of the cult of the individual maybe, it's the ray of the person whose beliefs are so strongly held that they almost tip outside of what we might call rational.
Yes.
And
can often be very extreme, and you get, as you say, you do get fanatics with a strong Ray 6 and that sort of thing. I haven't got to throwing Molotov cocktails at all yet, but you do sort of feel sometimes that you feel very strongly about these sort of things.
And I guess you need some Ray 6 to stand up for what you believe.
Yes, and I think all the people that are involved in our work with the meditation and the emergence stuff, they all got Ray 6 in them. There's been no exceptions to that.
Yeah.
So well, as the ancient Greeks used to say, Peter, man, know thyself, and you, the esotericist, says, man, know thy rays.
Yes, that's right. Yes, so it's a very interesting subject with the ray structure and that sort of thing. But we'll eventually see fewer Ray 6 souls coming into manifestation in the coming time, and more people with the Ray 4 and Ray 7 coming in. And particularly the Ray 4 will be starting to increase after 2025, and we will see an upswing very much of great artists and that sort of thing. I mean, up till now we've had some dubious quality of art, but if you go back to the Renaissance, obviously that was a high point when the Ray 4 was in.
Strong incarnation, Ray 4. That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, they say that the perfect artist is a balance between the 4 and the 7. And, some of these, Veronese was Ray 7 soul, Ray 7 personality, 7 mental, 7 physical, and 4 personality and mental as well. And so he's now actually a Ray 7 master.
Yeah.
And, couldn't be anything else.
Yeah, right.
Well, a lot of these musicians and artists are almost exclusively Rays 4 and 7, aren't they?
Yeah. So, and all the new architecture will be coming back in. In fact, he will be influencing the architecture in the near future when he emerges, and he will be emerging fairly soon. And so all your modern sort of buildings really are Ray 7 type buildings, whereas your churches and those sort of things were a combination of Ray 6 and Ray 7.
Okay, well, listen, that's great. Thanks very much, Peter. We're going to take a break and we'll come back.
Fascinating stuff. Thanks, Peter. These rays are so pervasive and hugely influential, John. Your job, however, today is to demonstrate the relevance of that information, the relevance or the result, if you like. So this great choice facing us all, do we embrace change or resist, John?
Look, I'm going to kick off with a statement by the Master through Benjamin Creme. This is back in September 2011. And I think it's really pertinent for today's time. And bearing in mind that the Masters are highly evolved beings, so there's no criticism here, but just listen to a couple of paragraphs. The Master starts with, from time to time, there appears among men a figure who embodies the best or the worst that men can show. These individuals become the most loved or the most hated of men. In either case, they usually draw to themselves many followers or devotees. Such figures have enormous magnetic appeal for the majority of men, or, on occasion, are an inspiring example of destructive power on a large scale. The history books are full of examples of both types. The Master goes on to say, today in large numbers, many examples of both types are manifesting worldwide. The effect of this manifestation is to set before humanity two opposing lines of action, and so create the tension of choice which will determine the future of the race. In biblical terms, this is the sword of cleavage. For many years, the energies emanating from and directed by Maitreya have sought to create such confrontation of opposites. This may seem strange indeed to many people, but it is essential that humanity make the correct choices for its future. Otherwise, that future will be bleak indeed. So Peter's talking about the 7 rays, ray 6, ray 4, ray 7. Underneath that, Maitreya is also releasing this energy. Now, it's called pure love, the pure energy of love. It's called, biblical terms, the sword of cleavage. And it is creating the polarities and the confrontation of opposites that we're seeing, as you said to start with, Nigel, in every field of human endeavour.
There's tension.
There's tension and there's polarity. There's no middle ground, right?
It's one or the other.
Yes. And we're seeing that much more strongly now. We see it in the media. You know, I remember as a young man, the media kind of took a middle road or offered it a reasonable choice. Now the polarities, the one or the other, as you've said. And this confrontation we're seeing everywhere, even in New Zealand, right? Clean Green, Middle Earth, Hobbiton, New Zealand. The Master goes on to say, the sword of cleavage is the energy of love. Wielded by Maitreya, it sets brother against brother and tests the true divine consciousness of people everywhere. The ultimate aim of all evolution is to establish on earth the kingdom of God, and as the sword of cleavage shows men the way. Now, what has this meant for me personally? I've been really picking at this because I've noticed I'm having falling outs with friends. I'm noticing that I'm not gelling with people I thought I gelled with. I've discovered that some of my friends, people I thought I knew, people who I believed I shared common values with, are actually on the other side of the divide, right? So this sort of cleavage, this mystical, magical, God knows what...
No, it's actually quite obvious now.
...being slashed around the planet is affecting me personally. Right? And as that divide widens, my friends and acquaintances and work colleagues are moving further away from me. This is global and personal. I'm now wondering if that gap is retrievable, is it breachable, can it be repaired? Perhaps it will take the energy of someone of Maitreya's standing to heal that division. There's that Sanskrit saying, as in the microcosm, so in the macrocosm. So in the macrocosm of my planet, there's this division, there's this polarity. And in the microcosm of my personal relationships...
It's right in your home, it's right in your community.
I'm having falling outs with good people I believe are of good heart, but we're standing on the other side of the divide. Right? So it's painful. But the Master comes back with, humanity stands on different rungs of the evolutionary ladder. Above a certain level, all bodes well. It is those who have not as yet manifested that measure of their divine self, who do not recognise that sharing is divine, that justice and right relationship are divine, but who see divinity as competition and conflict and register a man's worth by the weight of his gold. Many are fearful and suffering. Bereft of work and hope for the future, they struggle day to day. And that spirit of competition, that idea of competition, is deeply, deeply embedded in our definition of success.
And education, and it's in our economics, it's in our political system.
Commercialisation, which is how you started off at the beginning of this session.
The deep materialistic bind that we find ourselves in.
Right, and that sort of cleavage is cutting right through that. So on one side you have people that are capable of sharing, and on the other side you have people that think competition and
accumulation of wealth.
Accumulation, and that cult of the individual is the strength of their being. I've kind of thought about this a lot more, and I guess I'm trying to understand this cleavage in my personal relationships. And it's just fear. It's plain old common garden fear. Okay, it's transmuted into anger and frustration, and there's many reasons to be frustrated on planet Earth, but underneath it's just fear. People are desperately fearful of the changes they see and or perceive. And I guess it's that uninformed fear that is the most destructive. So the Master goes on to say, but many others, and this is the good news, are making their future for themselves, and many too are dying in the process. Throughout the world, men are awakening to the possibility of a better life, with freedom and justice at its heart. Have no fear. The people's voice is rising, and we are seeing that, and like a contagion affecting more and more. Maitreya stands behind those who live and die for the truth of freedom, justice, and the unity of man. The young lead the way, and the future is for them. So Ukraine right now. In fact, people have been asking me to compare the protests that we're seeing in New Zealand around mandates, mask wearing, and our intent to deal with viruses, and are comparing it to Ukraine, right? So, and it's easy to say they're both calls for freedom, but clearly one is freedom of nationhood, freedom of existence, freedom of the way to run your own life, and the other one is a claim to right of me, right of what I want to do. And so I don't see them as similar things. And I think if we had to look to a shining example of what people are trying to do in a unified way, then we can look to the people of Ukraine currently, for instance. And if we're looking at men of power and men who are trying to shape the planet in the way they want it, we can look at Putin. So there's some great examples of this happening on the planet right now. And once again, Maitreya and the Masters and Benjamin Creme have really nailed this from many years ago.
Predicting what was going to come, and it's unfolding everywhere you look now, isn't
Nigel, it's really difficult to remain sane at the moment, right? Really difficult to remain sane. And I understand the anger and frustration of people in New Zealand right now. There is much to be angry about. However, there are ways of going about protest. There are ways of going about showing how you get what you want.
Well, we have to exercise harmlessness as well.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be harming other human beings for the sake of what we believe in. And speaking of what we believe in, there's a great quote, and I guarantee you know who it's from. At a time of such great spiritual tension, this is a quote worth pondering. I would never die for my beliefs because I might be wrong.
Bertrand Russell. In fact, I wrote that on my wall the other day. No point dying for my beliefs. I could be wrong.
I could be wrong. It's a bit of a worry.
And you know what? You and I and Peter have to think about that.
Yeah.
We have a series of beliefs that we're putting in front of our listeners, and that's all they are, beliefs.
Well, we do insist on people hearing the message, but it's up to them what they do with it.
Yeah, but it's our belief, Nigel. And it's our sixth ray that got us here. Right, Peter?
Well, yes, it is too. But, you know, at a certain point you find your intuition kicks in, and sometimes you just know things are right or wrong, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, this is, you know, they say that the intuition is sort of infallible if you're getting the real intuition.
Yeah. And
so it's sort of like contact with the soul, and the soul, of course, is part of God. So, you know, the intuition can be infallible, I feel. Yeah. And I think Benjamin Creme knew that, and the stuff that he used to talk about was absolutely amazing.
Look, thank you, John, and thank you, Peter. It's been a good conversation, and we could actually, if we were allowed to, extend this conversation.
Yeah, but they've turned the lights out and turned the heating off, so we better go.
But look, I'd like to finish with a quote from Benjamin Creme's master, and then some words from the voice of Maitreya. And Benjamin Creme's master, from an article entitled "The People Stir," I thought this was very timely. It says, in the coming time, humanity is scheduled. Note that word, scheduled. In the coming time, humanity is scheduled to make such progress that a new type of human being will find expression. Altruism is the keynote of their approach, and a new simplicity and practicality will characterise their thinking. They are not, therefore, to be found in the ranks of the new young millionaires, but rather among the practical idealists in virtually every country. They will be quick to recognise the practicality of Maitreya's ideas and seek to implement these ideas without delay. We're talking about the youth. Their youth and enthusiasm will inspire a new approach to the age-old problems which obscure the future for so many.
Greta Thunberg.
And their unusual maturity of mind will guarantee their success. They represent the best in humanity now and the best hope for the future. And as you say, the Greta Thunbergs of this world, we need us older generations.
Yeah. Are you talking about Laura as well? In the
I'd prefer not to answer that question. Look, we actually need to look to the youth and be big enough to accept that they've got a level of maturity we didn't necessarily have at their stage of development.
Give them room.
Yeah. And look, let's finish with a few words from the voice of Maitreya. He says the new energy, and we've been talking about that new seventh ray energy that's pouring in at the moment, the new energy lights new hope and courage in countless hearts.
I see